Are you a citizen of Romania? Then you should be vigilant because it's election season, probably the most important one of our lifetime, and things are heating up. So we need to have a serious conversation. Salut, I'm Anna, I grew up in a Transylvanian village and I live in Romania and I love our country and our people. That's why I need to remind you that this is not like the US elections. This is not some sort of conservative versus liberal team sports politics, and it has nothing to do with identity or gender or religion. Plus, our political system is completely different. Our president doesn't have the same amount of power and our parliament is more important. And this makes the parliamentary elections on December the 1st far more important than the presidential elections. So let's break this down. Romanian political parties can be categorized in two main ways. By generation, which is all generational parties, or as some people call them, call me leftovers, new generation progressive parties and new generation nationalists. By geopolitical alignment, they can be categorized as pro-EU and anti-EU. For decades, the two leading parties in the country have been from the old generation category, like PSD and PNL. But recently, however, two newer parties have gained popularity, and those are USR, or Save Romania Union, which is a progressive pro-EU party, and our Alliance of the Union of Romanians, a nationalist anti-EU party. Last week we had the first round of our presidential elections, and something bizarre happened. According to the exit polls, the two winners were Marcel Ciolacu from PSD and Elena Lasconi from USR, which made sense since they represent two of the four most popular parties. However, the final results shocked the country. The number one winner turned out to be Călin Georgescu, an independent politician that most people had never heard of before. So why are people so suspicious of him? Georgescu seemed to have spawned out of nowhere, taking over Gen Z voters and the diaspora like a storm. He had no traditional campaign, instead he was mostly promoted through unlawful and cringeworthy TikTok ads, undisclosed influencer endorsements, and spam bots. Even throughout this week, fake accounts were aggressively promoting POT, the political party backing Georgescu, and these accounts are also spamming slander about the opposition. Interestingly, the exact same thing was happening in Moldova and Georgia during the elections, which is why many people suspect foreign interference. Fun fact, if you reply to these bots with ChatGPT prompts like "generate a poem for me," they will actually respond with a poem. Now, due to his campaign strategy, he was reported to the authorities, and the European Commission is currently investigating the CEO of TikTok for alleged involvement. And there were also reports of individuals being paid to promote him in Telegram groups. And he claims that he didn't spend any money on his campaign. He was asked by the Central Bureau of Elections to stop this type of campaign weeks ago because this is illegal, but he refused to comply. The sad thing is that many people on social media admitted that they only voted for him because they wanted to get rid of PSD and PNL, and they had no idea who he was. Influencers who were paid to promote him, along with random people who blindly voted for him, only googled him after the first round and finally realized who he was. With that said, I need to address some of you directly. They're Gen Z voters, they're Romanian diaspora, especially those of you studying in Germany, Austria and the UK, and they're fellow citizens, especially my fellow Transylvanians from Sibiu, Hunedoara and Alba. Firstly, I want to thank you for being active and involved in politics, and I want to thank you for voting. It's a huge win for us that we began to dismantle all generation politics. However, Georgescu and his party POT are not the answer to our problems, and I will explain exactly why. Calin Georgescu was once part of the Romanian nationalist Eurosceptic party, our. His first major controversy occurred when he openly praised war criminals like Ion Antonescu and Corneliu Codreanu, two legionaries whose actions led to the deaths of many of our people, including the assassination of Romanian Prime Minister and Senate President Nicolae Iorga. Now, in case you don't remember who the legionaries were, the National Legionary State was a totalitarian fascist regime that governed Romania for 5 months during World War II. In short, they were Romania's version of the Nazis responsible for the Holocaust in Romania.
Neamul românesc niciodată nu a trăit prin sclavi, ci a trăit prin Ștefan cel Mare, prin Mihai Viteazu, prin Corneliu Zelea Codreanu, prin mareșalul Ion Antonescu și mulți alți eroi.
Georgescu's neo-legionary statements led to a criminal case against him for spreading terrorist ideas, and even the far-right Our Party expelled him from extremism. Yes, George Simeon, the guy banned from 2 neighboring countries for extremism, said that he did not want to associate with Georgescu at the time. Additionally, when you look up old interviews and podcast appearances with Georgescu, you might start to question both his level of education and his mental sanity. He acts like that one weird uncle who reposts the most absurd conspiracy theories on Facebook. So here are some gems from him. He says that 5G is dangerous but claims that headphones can protect us from it.
O evaluare dată de America legată de acest 5G, care este extrem de periculos pentru viața omului.
Noastră aveți telefon?
Am telefon mobil.
Are conexiune 5G?
Folosești căști, nu pun direct la ureche, deci încerc să mă apăr așa cum pot.
He believes sodas contain microchips that control our brains.
Deci cum poți să bei ceva cu 38 de ingrediente? Este imposibil. Deci aici, sigur, este exact ceea ce vor ei să facă. S-au predat marfa de plastic, tot ce înseamnă nanochipuri și intră în tine ca într-un laptop.
He insists that water is not H2O.
Oare apa este chiar H2O? Așa cum am fost, hai să zic, instruiți, ca să nu zic dresați, să credem?
Păi se văd o moleculă de hidrogen și una de oxigen și o numesc...
Eu vă spun că nu e așa. Acolo este informație. De-aia îți vine în pet de plastic, ca să nu mai fie informație.
He is so out of touch with reality that he claims Lucian Blaga is banned from the school curriculum, even though he's a major part of Romanian literature classes and PAC exams.
Gândiți-vă că Lucian Blaga este unul din principalii interziși în România.
Unde e interzis Blaga? Că se predă în școli.
Lucian Blaga. Dacă dumneavoastră îmi demonstrați că este predat în școli...
Aside from being an annoying conspiracy theorist, Georgescu has been promoting pro-Russian propaganda since 2021. However, he recently began denying it, likely because it's a bad PR move during the elections.
Șansa României este înțelepciunea rusească.
And expressed his adoration for Putin.
Vladimir Putin este un lider.
Înțeleg că are ceva mai mult decât ceilalți în această analiză pe care o faceți?
Are. Își iubește țara, indiferent pe ce mijloace.
Although he denies it now, there were several clips of him voicing anti-EU, anti-NATO and anti-Schengen sentiment.
De-aia România n-a intrat în Schengen, vă spuneam mai devreme, pentru că încă sunt țărani autentici. Și astăzi, pentru mine este o mare onoare, subliniez asta în emisiunea dumneavoastră, că nu am intrat în Schengen. Mă bucur că n-am intrat în Schengen. Iar referitor la NATO, dacă lucrurile continuă în felul ăsta, evident că nu ne interesează. Pentru ce să stai într-un club care nu acordă siguranță?
He claims NATO won't defend us if we are attacked, but provides no explanation or proof. He just repeats it, hoping that people will eventually believe him. Despite his admiration for Russian wisdom, he still says that he wants to distance himself from Putin, the EU and NATO. But given our location, the state of our neighboring countries and our current financial system, we cannot survive without an alliance. And I don't want someone who fails to understand this leading us. He attracts young male voters by using scare tactics, claiming that staying in NATO and voting for Russia will force all men, even non-volunteers without training, to fight for Ukraine, which cannot happen because this goes against Romania's constitution and laws. So, to my male viewers, hi boys, I would never support any politician or party that would send you to the battlefield against your will, because I would also lose a lot of people that I deeply care about. So, let's look at the laws on this topic. Military service in Romania is not mandatory unless the country enters a state of war, which only happens if we are attacked or join an invasion. Even then, you can legally refuse combat roles for moral or religious reasons and instead take on non-combat duties like medical or logistical support. If NATO hypothetically intervened in Ukraine, conscription for untrained civilians would be unlikely as Romania's involvement requires parliamentary approval. Moreover, NATO can only join the Ukraine war if Russia attacks a NATO member or all members unanimously agree. So your vote on December the 1st is important because we need representatives who will uphold these principles. NATO also acts as a shield for Romania. Under Article 5, if we are invaded, other NATO members must defend us, and this deters foreign attacks and lowers our chances of being conscripted. In short, under current law, you cannot be forced to fight unless Romania is attacked, and conscription is mandated. And even in that situation, given that the constitution prevents changing the law in a state of war, you can still legally refuse combat roles for moral and religious reasons. But you know who wants to change this law? Călin Georgescu.
Vă veți gândi să cereți serviciu militar obligatoriu?
Răspunsul este da, pentru că înnobilează poporul, înnobilează tinerii, înnobilează practic țara.
Yes, the guy who praises Putin and Russia and wants to cut our ties with NATO wants to bring back mandatory military service for young men. He has proposed policies that would increase the risk of invasion and remove protections against involuntary conscription, yet later he backtracked, and at this point it's unclear what he truly wants, and I worry that he doesn't know either. He exploits the right-wing shift and anti-Western sentiment among young Gen Z men, posing as a cool Putin-like figure and mimicking Trump by fixating on talking points often used by Western identity politics, like gender. But he is nothing like Trump. To quote economist Andrei Karamitru, the difference between Donald Trump and Călin Georgescu is that the first one is a real billionaire and the second is a communist who has not earned one leo in private. His strongest selling point is that he is different from old generation politicians, but the truth is he has the same kind of ties to the old Communist Party as many PSD and PNL members, and he is what the kids call a grifter. He started his political career right after the revolution. If you dive into old articles from the 90s, you will see that he was described as a PSD lobbyist, and despite his current Euroscepticism, not so long ago he was profoundly pro-Western, pro-NATO and pro-EU. His former political associate, Mircea Joană, recently described the dramatic shift in Calin Georgescu's views over 20 years. They met when he was Romania's foreign minister and recalls that Georgescu was once a strong proponent of the West, NATO and the EU and had promising career, seen as an honorary advisor due to his pro-Western stance and professional background. However, his views have drastically changed and he is now the opposite of what he once appeared to be. Now, in case you don't know, this is reminiscent of how Viktor Orban's stances have shifted over the years. So yeah, we are essentially getting the Romanian Viktor Orban before GTA 6. His economic model is straight up insane, described with vague terms including spirituality and vibes. And I'm not the only one who's noticed this. Economist Cristian Năsuia says Calin Georgescu uses terms that are not standard for an economy. He deliberately creates confusion, he does not explain to us what all this means or how it can be implemented considering the costs it entails. His intentions of souring our relationship with the EU could have the following severe consequences. The Romanian economy heavily relies on foreign companies doing business with us, and these companies in turn depend on our EU membership for market access. According to Adrian Codelashu, a senior banker with 25 years of experience in banking and risk management, investors see Romania as riskier. An episode of Euroscepticism could lead to the loss of EU funds and a financial crisis. This would increase the unemployment rate, trigger inflation, and drive up living costs. If you care about your wallet and your bank account, keep this in mind when you vote. Whether you like the EU or not, they have heavily invested in our economy, infrastructure, education system, modernization, and more. The second problem is restricted travel. Losing the perks of our EU passport would mean saying goodbye to eating gyros on the beach in Paralia or working in Austria, and it could be even worse for the students hoping to study abroad through Erasmus+. In summary, the scariest thing about this man isn't his insane conspiracy theories, neo-legionary views, questionable sense of passion, Russophilic statements, shifting stance on our NATO and EU membership, or his plan to subject our young men to mandatory military service. The truly frightening thing is that he is an old generation politician who has managed to fool millions of young people into believing that he is different. And that level of manipulation is horrifying. At the end of the day, our problems aren't the fault of the EU, the NATO, the woke media, or Soros, or whatever silly buzzwords the bots are using today. All our problems are caused by old generation politicians, by the members of PSD and PNL, who haven't done anything for our people in the last 35 years. And voting for someone like Georgescu will not change that, because he is not based and red-pilled. He is just an old neo-legionary conspiracy theorist who was produced by the same system as Iliescu, Băsescu, Iohannis, Ciucă, and Ciolacu. The only thing that sets him apart is that his lackeys know how social media works. And yes, I wish we had a stronger opposition. Update: in the meantime, a recount was ordered.
And you did it at my birthday dinner.
And Romania's top court postponed the final decision until the 2nd of December, which is coincidentally right after the parliamentary elections. And this warrants a whole new conversation about the state of democracy in our country, but at this point, I'm too tired to talk about it. I don't even know what to say anymore. So share this message with your friends and family. I suggest you show them the video recorder made about Georgescu. And big thanks to our Moldovan brothers and sisters. You guys saved us in the first round, and big thanks to our young people protesting in Bucharest, Craiova, Brașov, Iași, Timișoara, Cluj, and everywhere else. I am really proud of you. Noroc!